So back in 2019, I picked up this carbon integrated bar and stem here for an incredibly cheap 22 quid or around 30 bucks. Yeah, it was an astonishing value really. Yeah, looks amazing in my opinion, nice and lightweight, and it keeps the front of the bike looking nice and tidy as well. But how well does this integrated carbon setup compare to this pretty bog standard aluminium bar and stem that most of you are probably more familiar with, especially in the kind of flex department? Well, stick around and we'll find out. Right then, Sirocco coming back in to sponsor another one, and they've just dropped loads of new kit for spring, summer, and they've hooked me up with some new gear. So I got a new jersey and new bib shorts from their slightly more premium range, and they come in a bunch of new pastel colors if you're American. Yeah, it's difficult to kind of show on camera, but the quality of the fabrics on these is, yeah, it's exceptional basically. They're really light and comfortable. Yeah, it just feels like a second skin when you got these on. And importantly, the padding on the bib shorts is, yeah, it's tip top, which is fortunate considering my saddle is entirely carbon. Wow, so comfy. Now the weather can still be pretty changeable out there this time of year, so yeah, new rainproof vest here, keep you warm and dry out on the bike, and looks really good when you got it on as well. Plus, new leg warmers. So yeah, they got heaps of new gear on, but if you wanted something a bit more budget friendly, then they got loads of options too, like their M2 jerseys. I mean, this one here, I've had for over a year and I've worn it on virtually every ride. Still looks really good, like the colors haven't faded or anything. And this thing is like 29 quid right now. So yeah, if you did want to get some stuff from Sirocco and also help out what I do around here a little bit as well, then use my link in the description below and save 10% off the entire site, which is pretty cool. Anyway, enough of that, and let's check out some handlebars. Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another, this whole setup. It's an absolute joke, isn't it really? Trace Fellow Production, my name, as always, is, yeah, it's Luke. Right, 22 quid I paid for these things. Genuinely, like, incredible, astonishing value, really. Yeah, and I've had them on the bike for the last 18 months. Definitely long enough to give them a pretty good shakedown, I would say. Yeah, they're from a brand called Toseek, or Toseek, and I've had a couple of things from them in the past. I've had a carbon handlebar or two from them. I've also had some carbon saddles and a carbon stem as well, so I'm pretty familiar with their stuff. Now, some of you may recall that one of my first videos on the topic of cheap carbon handlebars actually covered these bars here, again from Toseek, and I've had these ones on my rim brake bike for probably over 3 years. I must have sunk about 15,000 miles into those bars, and they are still rock solid. But more recently, actually, a friend of mine had an identical set of those bars fail on him, and I've stuck them to the roof of my garage up there. Yeah, I did a whole video on how and why those failed, because they did just catastrophically fail out on a ride. So you can check that out later if you want. But basically, with these Toseek handlebars, it's potentially a bit of a mixed bag in terms of quality, but we'll get into that. But before we do, it's worth pointing out that I've kind of bought and paid for all of the handlebars in this video myself, including an additional set of these integrated carbon bars here from Toseek. These are identical to the ones that I'm running on my bike. It basically saves me from having to kind of rip apart the whole front end of my bike to show you these bars, because yeah, as we'll get onto, setup with these handlebars is a little bit involved. Let's just say that much. But yeah, but without further ado, yeah, let's get cracking. Right then, here are the Toseek bars. Now, the first thing that I want to clear up, the set that I've been using for the last 18 months, so not this set here, but the set on my disc brake road bike, they did in fact cost me £22.67 from eBay, including delivery actually, which you can, should be able to see it here. But since then, I've rarely seen them for less than 50 quid. In fact, this set here I picked up from the old AliExpress, £48.55 delivered to my door. So if you did want to pick up a set of these, expect to pay around 50 quid. Now you can get these bars in a number of different kind of widths and stem lengths, and you can seemingly get pretty much exactly the same bars, just under a different brand name, like these ones here. So we've got TMAEX, Timax, yeah, we've got Took, a brand called Balugo, and a set from a brand called RXL SL. Yeah, but I think they're actually all replicas of these old bars from Sinelli. They're Ram 2 handlebars from the kind of mid to late 2000s. Anyway, these ones here are identical to the ones that I've been using on my disc brake bike for the last 18 months. They're 40 centimeters wide with 100 millimeter stem length. There are a few other specs that you might be interested in, such as drop height and the kind of reach to the shifters, and I've put those specs down in the video description if you wanted to check those out. Now, the overall quality of the carbon layup is pretty good for the price, actually. So you can see you've got the 3K weave here, and it's the same on the other side. There are some little rough areas, so you can see here a little bit of crumpling of the carbon sheets in the mold, but overall, for the price, it's pretty good. But there are these darker areas here. So you can see you've got the weave showing through, and then it goes dark, and then the weave kind of comes back, and it's the same on the other side. Got the weave, goes dark, and then the weave comes back. Yeah, now I'm not 100% certain, and it could just be kind of a paint scheme, but I'm pretty sure that these darker areas here are indicative of the fact that this handlebar didn't come out of a one-piece mold. I get the feeling that they mold the drops and the top separately, and then join them together after the fact, and that's kind of covered up with black paint here. I tried to do a bit of research to support this theory, but I couldn't find anything conclusive. So yeah, if you know what these darker areas kind of show, then definitely let me know in the comments. But yeah, I have a feeling this was kind of, yeah, molded in separate parts and then joined up. But yeah, if you know for sure, definitely let me know in the comments. Okay, so for a point of comparison with these, with this carbon integrated setup, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I'll be comparing these bars here directly to these. I'll just get them off the floor. Yeah, this aluminium setup here. So it's a very standard aluminium setup. Again, 40 centimeters on the width and 100 millimeters on the stem length. I've got these from Chain Reaction Cycles, literally went on and sorted by cheapest first. Both of them are from a brand called Brand X. They had pretty good reviews. £19.98 for the both of these. So yeah, pretty flipping cheap. So let's start the comparison off with arguably one of the most important factors, the weight. So this aluminium setup here comes in at 455 grams, and the carbon integrated setup 331, so 124 grams lighter, which is pretty good, but honestly a bit less than I thought it would be actually. And if you forked out for a slightly more expensive aluminium setup, especially a more expensive stem, because this one is kind of quite heavy and basic actually, the weight would be even closer. But there we are, a pretty decent weight saving compared to this bog standard aluminium setup. But let's talk about flex. Baby, let's talk about you and me. Okay, so here is the testing setup, and rest assured, every expense was spared here. So we've got the regulation quick grips, the regulation IKEA desk topper, and most importantly, the UCI calibrated 5-litre bottle of water from the 24-hour Tesco down the road. Yeah, but in all seriousness, this is obviously not a particularly precise test, but it should give us a pretty good idea of how much each set of bars flex for a kind of a given load. So I'll clamp each set of bars in using these quick grips, and I'll try and keep the clamping position consistent each time to keep things yeah, relatively consistent between the bars. Obviously use the same set of forks each time, and then I'll get the weight, in this case just over 5 kilos, attach it with the carabiner, and then measure the amount of kind of flex for that given load. Now, if I was a betting man, I would say that these things are probably going to lose. You can just feel when you get them in your hand that they are a lot more flexy than these aluminium ones here. So yeah, I have a feeling that these ones are probably going to lose. But there's only one way to find out. So in the words of the Beastie Boys, let's check it out. When you check using TV ad. So a pretty rudimentary setup, but I got some interesting results. Now, I tested both ends of each set, so I flipped each set of bars over and tested a couple of times. And as predicted, the aluminium bars were stiffer. So on average, the aluminium bars deflected 2.95 centimeters, whereas the carbon bars deflected 3.9 centimeters. So basically, the carbon ones are 25% more pliant or flexible. Now, this obviously won't be indicative of all carbon bars, but these ones here are pretty flexy and can't even beat literally the cheapest aluminium ones I could find. Also, if you're enjoying this episode, hitting subscribe and liking the video really does help me out. I mean, I'm a one-man show over here, so yeah, any help at all is super appreciated. Anyway, let's get back to it. Okay, so on the face of it, if you've seen these bars online, you might think they're perfect for kind of cable routing. So you've got lots of options, right? Got holes out the bottom here for the cables. You've got a hole there, another one on the other side right here, and then you've got holes on the side as well, on the kind of back side on each side of the bar. So plenty of options, right? So it's going to be easy. Well, no, not really. So these bars were clearly, at least the design, was clearly made up in the early 2000s when the majority of STI shifters on road bikes had the brake cable coming out the back of the shifter and then the gear cable coming out of the side. So the same as my rim brake road bike setup, which you can see here. So this is kind of what STI shifters used to look like. Now, those older style shifters would probably be fine to use with these bars here, but the issue is that with all modern shifters really, from Campag, SRAM and Shimano, both the brake and the gear cables come out the back of the shifter and they both need to feed into this hole here, and it's basically too small. You can only fit one set of cables through there. So essentially what I had to do was I went and bought myself a set of these needle files. They're sometimes called jeweler's files. I picked these up for about a tenner on eBay, and I sat there and I widened that hole there on each side, so that one and then the corresponding one there on that set of bars at the back, in order to fit the brake and the gear cables through the bars. Now pair that with the fact that these bars don't come with any kind of guide tubes, so the first time you cable these, you have to feed them in these little holes blind and have to kind of pick them out. Yeah, really frustrating to cable these with any modern shifters, really. Now, it definitely can be done. So on my set up here, I'm actually running a fully hydraulic setup through the bar. So that's a hydraulic kind of brake line and the gear cables running through the bars. So yeah, it's doable, but it takes time and it's really, really fiddly. Now, I could have just run one set of cables through the bars and then put the other underneath the bar tape, but I'm a massive pedantic loser. So I couldn't be beaten by a set of cheap carbon bars. So I sat there whittling away these little holes. But you could do that, I suppose, if you were more sensible than me. Anyway, there is another pretty massive design flaw with these carbon bars here. Now, considering they're made of carbon fiber, which can essentially be molded into any shape that you want, the drops for these from about here all the way down aren't round. They look like this. So they're actually a kind of rounded off square in cross section, which makes absolutely no sense at all, considering that on all shifters, the clamping band on the back of the shifter is round, which you can see there. And fitting them onto a rounded square, yeah, really, really frustrating. So much so that I took a set of those clamping bands out the back of a set of shifters and hammered them into a squared off shape so that they would actually fit nicely and clamp properly onto the set of bars. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense why they would make them a square shape. So essentially, setup with these handlebars is just super frustrating at virtually every step. But having said that, there are several things I really do love about these handlebars here. So let's cover those off quickly. So first off, once you have these set up and on the bike, they are incredibly comfortable out on the road. I guess as a result of the inherent kind of flexibility of these bars, because they do have quite a lot of flex, I suppose. They just soak up all of the road noise and the vibration. I'd sometimes find using aluminium bars, I would get numb palms after a kind of a few hours out on the road, but with these, that's never been an issue. I also love this massive wide section here on the tops. They're just perfect for resting your palms on as you cruise down the road. Secondly, I really like the Garmin and GoPro mounts that you can sling underneath the bars using these 2 bolts here. Yeah, just keeps it looking really nice and tidy at the front and keeps all your accessories off the tops of the bars where you're kind of holding them. Yeah, I really like that. And lastly, I just love the way that these bars look. When you've got all the cables running internally through the bars and it's all set up nicely, they just look really, really pucker. Keeps the front of the bike nice and clean. And I've had loads of compliments actually about how the front of my bike looks just with those handlebars. So yeah, they look really cool as well, in my opinion. But with all that being said, should you buy yourself a pair of these rude boys? Well, join me, ladies and gentlemen, as we venture forth into the final thoughts. So, do I recommend these bars to any of you? Well, no, not really. So they look good and they're comfy out on the road, but the downsides definitely outweigh the benefits. I mean, they are pretty flexy, first and foremost, and that's kind of to be expected. Carbon bars are generally a little bit more kind of compliant than their aluminium counterparts, but just the level of flex, especially in the drops, it doesn't fill me with confidence. Now, I've not had any problems, but I get the feeling if you're a bit of a heavier rider and your weight's over the front and you're kind of holding onto the drops, like so, I think if you hit a pothole, there's a real chance you could just snap one or both of the drops off of these handlebars. In fact, while I was browsing AliExpress, I actually found a video from one of the manufacturers of a set of these bars that kind of demonstrated exactly that. Okay, so RXL SL is that brand I mentioned earlier, and they just dropped them with a set of weights on. Now, I'm not sure what these weigh, but you can see the guy checking them over, seeing if they're okay. And we've got the sign off for round 2. So yeah, they set them up again, let them fall, and both drops have snapped off. So I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to demonstrate here. There's no sound for the clip or any other explanation really, but clearly 2 drops is all you get. So bear that in mind. Secondly, they are just far too fiddly to set up properly. Yeah, if you buy these, I'm sure you're expecting to be able to run the cables internally, but with any shifters made in the last 10 to 15 years, yeah, you're gonna struggle. And that square profile for these drops, it makes no sense. I don't know why they've done that. So yeah, unless you're running the older style shifters and you don't mind a little bit of flex, yeah, these are probably ones to avoid. Anyway, quick update for you before we go. These wheels are new. Some of you may have spotted them. They're from Elite Wheels. I got them in the post about a week ago. Their new Drive series of wheels. Honestly, incredible wheels. Easily some of the best that I've ever used. And for the price that these things are going for, yeah, really interesting proposition. So I'm gonna get a few more miles on them, but review coming soon. So get subscribed so you don't miss it. And the gravel bike build that I mentioned in the last episode, yeah, what's the last one? I got the frame in the post literally like a couple of hours ago, and it looks so cool. I'll put in some pictures, but the color, I love it. So basically, got all the bits for the gravel bike build. So yeah, Chinese carbon gravel bike build video. Yeah, it's coming up. So yeah, subscribe, I guess, so you know, so you don't miss it. Oh no, I messed up the outro. What is it? It's late, guys. What time is it? It's 12:03 in the morning now. This is like the 8th take of this because I'm really tired. I don't know if you can see my bags under my eyes. So yeah, subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And if you've got any questions or comments, pop them down below and I'll get back to as many of you as I can. Anyway, I'm gonna go to bed. It's late. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao. Sayonara. Oh, it's bedtime. So much bedtime. Say, Doc, what's the condition? I'm a man that's on a mission. Said, son, you better listen. Stuck in your what is an electrician?